pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll consider a motion to approve the commission meetings minutes of October 17th, 2017. I have a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any additions or corrections? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consider a motion to approve claims to be paid as presented. Have a motion? Jim, okay, second? Okay, motion has been made and second to approve the claims as to be presented as paid. All those in favor say aye. Okay. Anybody want to introduce themselves? Are we okay? Okay. Treasures?
I guess there's two things on the agenda from this one. One is with Paige, and he's not here yet.
No, but you can go to the next one because he's not coming.
Okay.
No, the second.
5849 and 5850, I've handed it out to you guys. He met with you in August about setting up payments. He told me he had to pay off his county liens first. He hasn't done that. And he was supposed to meet back with you in November.
We haven't received any payments from him. I think he has been making payments towards his court, fines and stuff, but I don't think regularly. Cause I know that we received one from the other person that lives at the residence the other day. A payment of $100, so if his came along with it, then it went to fines. So it didn't go to court appointed because fines get paid off first. But he was supposed to have this paid off, it's $591.45 by November. And then you guys were gonna discuss partial payments on the taxes, but
He doesn't have that
we
paid
don't
off
have
yet
any of
either.
it paid off. Taxes go back to 2011. And he was coming and then he's called yesterday and said he's not coming.
So I just need some direction from you if you want me to start the proceedings for the tax. Mhm.
Pass it to Jamie, please.
What do you think, Jamie?
I would take the property.
Sorry, foreclosing on the property?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to start the proceeding.
Have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
See it. Is this yours?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have until the other guy comes in, I guess.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, Jenny?
Morning.
Morning.
All I have is, motion to sign utility easement for Shirley excavation for boring across the gravel road.
Where's this at?
It's down by Lowry.
Just east of Lowry, about 3/8 of a mile, straight east.
Just for water or?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
So, utility easement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For who?
made and second to approve the utility easement.
That's pretty much standard, isn't it?
Yeah. We've been doing them for years. It's just a utility easement.
What would we do if we said, no, it's already done, isn't it?
I don't know, I don't think so.
It's in.
It's in, okay, understand.
Any more discussion? Okay, can I have a motion to approve that easement? All right, those are already made. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Okay, Becky, I need you to do your seal thing and Dave's gonna sign it and then I do that. Please. The only other thing is I have a question, do you want the highway department to clean the parking lot out here this winter for snow? Or how are you guys gonna handle that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes,
I
we
would
do.
say yes.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
that's all I have.
Ben, you got a question for that? Would you care if, I mean, if I was room in some areas before?
No, no,
Not there before you guys or something?
yeah, no, that's
If
fine.
it's just the light stuff,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
do that.
Yeah.
Do before I asked.
we don't ever do anything, it's just like, no, that's no problem at all.
Okay.
It's just big stuff. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Okay, you have that information on holiday closings?
Did you call? Maybe try again in like 10 minutes.
What's that?
What's that?
I was having her call Tate. Holiday closings, I think I forwarded you guys the email from the governor. He is closing the day after Thanksgiving, or giving them the day after Thanksgiving off, which we normally do that. And then the day after Christmas.
Do we have any problems with that?
I don't.
Any
I say
problem?
we follow the state's, what the state's doing.
Okay, we'll follow this, what the states, we don't need a motion on
No, we just needed to
that. We're
know.
gonna follow the state.
Okay.
Friday to Tuesday, right?
Then why they do it? That's what I thought.
Is Josh around?
We could maybe grab Brenda, cause you said that you wanted to bring some stuff up.
While we're waiting for that, Ryan, do you want to talk about the landfill or?
In the roof there,
Yeah.
we gotta wait till 10 o'clock to do the bid opening on the roof, but I'm hoping we get some bids in, but, not much else to report about the landfill, other than, you know, all the cell closure, or the cell, construction is done out there, and now we're just getting ready for winter time, so trying to finish up a few loose ends before it gets really ugly out there. I don't know if, anybody has any questions about the railroad ties out there, I'd be happy to answer them now too, if you do. So, otherwise you can
Make sure
talk
you
to me
get
after the meeting, so. Basically, Sandy Rock Sanitation got a contract with the railroad to clear off all the ties that are along the railroad grade from here all the way to the Montana border, it sounds like. They're bringing them out to our facility because they have to stage them at a permitted facility. So that's basically, I made some arrangements and we're getting a little work compensation from them in lieu of monetary compensation, but their plan is to recycle everything, to sell the good ones that they can and then shred and sell the shreds for fuel, basically power plant fuel, so. I made an agreement with them basically, so they have a year to do whatever they're gonna do with them. In a spot where they're not really causing me any problems, it was just an open space that we don't use for anything else, so. Basically, we're just letting them store them there, scale the loads when they come in, and then our hands are off of it.
Do that first.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, but we're gonna do the quarterly first.
Okay, that's fine. You know what, yeah. You can pass that around. Basically, the two cases that Brenda was talking about that we had on October 13th, or 31st, we lost. So we're ordered to pay, and this kind of breaks it out of what we have to pay. I would, one of them, I would say we need to start garnishing wages right away, so we may have to take that as a form of a judgment. We need to check to see if we garnish wages on liens, but that's my plan, is to start garnishing wages to get paid immediately on that one, so we can recoup some of our expense. We received a letter from Avera on Friday. On 13A1, basically this is where there were originally 4 cases involving this individual, and the other 3 were denied, which we didn't have to pay, and then this is the 4th one that we do have to pay. So, the reason that we wanted to get this in front of you is that if we pay them quickly, they're gonna cut their interest in half, and half the disbursement, so it's gonna save us about $1,300 on 13A1 and $600 on 16A1. So realistically, I just want to get a motion to, because how can we do that, Becky? Can we get them to a motion to pay, or how can we work that, so we don't have to wait for another meeting? Or do we have to wait for another meeting?
Well, we already discussed this at the last.
Yeah, you did
Right.
discuss them, but discuss denying them, right?
No, that they were denied, and that we're gonna have a hearing on them.
So, that's up to you.
Well, I just wanna make sure we do it right. If we can just do a motion to, because we're still on 13A1, there's a discrepancy. We only pay the Medicare rate. We don't pay the billed rate, and they're off by about $1,000 on the Medicaid rate, so we need to get that cleared with them, so we don't have a specific amount. We think that we're right with our numbers, but Avera is, got some confusion. So I'd like to just get,
Have them make a motion to go ahead and pay them, and then they will be on the next claims list anyways, so they'll be approved twice.
okay,
Let's do that, so we're
Can we have a
covered.
motion to pay case 13A1?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Any discussion?
You're gonna put in there about garnishing wages too, then, or?
we don't need to do that. I'll run with that, so.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
The
Okay.
13A1 is in a retirement home now, and they have 0 assets, but with 16A1, I think we can recover some of our payment.
That's the one you're gonna garnish the wages on? Yes, not 13A1.
13A1 is, yeah, he's in the retirement home and not very competent anymore, and basically he's on Medicare, and that's about it.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve payment for case 16A1?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
We both know on
Oh,
that, not an option.
not an option.
If he's not ready yet, Josh, I can do one more thing.
Actually, these are the only two we paid in about the last 20 months.
Okay, we'll go to number 12. Consider a motion to authorize chairperson to sign the DOT application for utility permit.
Ryan, do you wanna explain that?
This is basically just, stuff we can tie into the storm sewer with the drainage from the courthouse road.
I still mean,
Okay, Jim, you made the motion. Second?
No second.
Okay, motion has been made in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Should we go to 13 then?
We can.
Okay, discussion regarding media policy adopted March 22nd, 2016, as suggested by the SDPAA. Okay, who put that on there?
I did. I put that on there because we all sat in here, we agreed on, one person talking to the paper is Jamie. And apparently that doesn't happen anymore.
It didn't happen at that time, and that was just for the employees. That was not for everybody, that was just the employees.
I don't think so.
Yes, it was.
No, we had discussed it because Aberdeen American News, I'm just using them for example, we're calling you, and we agreed on it sitting in this meeting. And nobody talked to the paper except Jamie.
it's my understanding, and Dwayne Martin pointed that out just right after that, you can't stifle his voice. That is for employees only, not elected officials.
Well,
I assume you're talking about me, you know?
well, I'm talking, it goes back, I'll even just throw this paper out right here, it's you, Dave. I mean, to me, if you put something in the paper, you should be close to right. We at the Rotary Club. I mean, it's just stuff like that. I mean, if a guy isn't even gonna print it right,
Well, that doesn't mean that,
well, yeah, it does. I think we should not be talking to the paper, we agreed on that. I don't know how else you.
I didn't talk to the paper,
Okay.
and we did not agree that we were not going to do that. That is only for the employees, nobody else.
Well, I guess I didn't take it that way. We
Well,
were not
that's-
supposed to talk.
Huh?
We were not supposed to talk to them.
That was strictly employees, wasn't
I don't have any control over elected officials.
it? Right.
That's kinda how, I mean, I can't control what you guys say since you're elected, or Nyla, or myself. Well, I control myself, but,
I'll
the
bet-
treasurer
Are you
knows, but
sure?
I'll bet when we go back and listen to that meeting, how we
I think-
discussed that.
I would say you're probably right that there was an agreement that we should probably discuss things before we talk to the press, but technically I don't have, I can control the employees, but I don't have any control over the elected officials.
Yeah, I put that in there, but I don't think it's right, and I know that's how we discussed it.
Well, then your idea of it is completely wrong than what Jim's is and my, and just about everybody else that was there at that meeting. So there.
So then I should just go talk to the paper whenever.
Sure you can.
Jesus. A bigger mess than what it is.
Okay, that's over with.
Want to do those? Alcohol licenses.
Okay. All right. Consider motion to approve it. Alcohol beverage renewal Mobridge Country Club, Hoban Country Club. Hoban.
Hoban's not supposed to be on there.
Okay.
Hoban's not, you say?
So it's just Mobridge Country Club and New Everett's. I need a motion for each.
This is New Everett's.
I so moved for Walworth Country Club.
Okay. Second,
I'll second
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. New Everett's, can I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll send them both right here.
What happened to the other one?
You want a lemon?
Well, wherever they're from. I was gonna build them
We mailed it out, we haven't received it back yet.
Is this for alcohol or malt beverage?
These ones are on sale liquor.
On sale?
The other ones are in June, done in June. Where's Josh? Are we starting?
We're ready.
Okay. Let's see here. I don't know how to pick a line on here. Let's go on the line two. Ryan, is there a way to pick a line on here?
Not that I know of. Those two, is the phone jack
Oh,
in here
yeah.
tied to a separate
Yeah.
line, I think.
Other number, we'll call him.
Okay. Brad? We'll call you back if that number is 1715 715 644 5712.
Brad? It's either.
Brad?
Hmm? Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Brad,
Hi, it's Brad here.
how are you doing?
Good.
Okay, we're at the conference call with Brad.
Okay, do you guys have questions for me, or do you want me to kind of summarize where I feel you're at, or how would you like to proceed?
Does anybody have any questions for him?
If he's gonna summarize it first, then we can ask.
Okay, would you want to summarize, please?
Sure, you know, I tried to point out, Melissa, did you share the email response I sent?
I didn't receive it. I was having trouble with my emails.
Well, you didn't. Josh, did you receive it?
Brad, do you wanna send it to me and I can just go ahead and print it out, or?
Sure, hang on 1 second here, let me.
Wait, Josh has it.
I got it, Brad.
I think it's very important for the commission to read that email, so it puts things a little bit in perspective, because there was quite a bit of confusion, I think. So maybe if you want to take the time to maybe print a couple copies of that and have everybody read it.
I'm making a copy for all of them, Brad.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and kind of walk through it, or do you wanna wait and read it?
We don't have it yet, Brad.
Okay.
And Brad, just to clarify, this is in response to Melissa's email, correct?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to read it though, because I think there was a significant amount of confusion on kind of the process and what phase 2 meant.
No, I agree with you.
And we can certainly walk through that, but if you read the email, hopefully I've done a little bit of justice to her questions.
So Brad, this is Calvin, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So according to this, and what other people are thinking is we're already to the point where we decided to build this, correct?
Well, I guess at the point where you're at is up to the commission, but if you were to pursue phase 2 as I presented it, that would be full design right up until the final estimate.
That's
Of course, you can always back out when you get that final estimate, but that's a significant expense.
So $400,000 to do phase 2, and we haven't even made a decision yet whether we're gonna build or not build. My proposal was.
Right, that's why I tried to point out in that email that it's important that you're fully intending to build as long as everything falls in line if you're gonna go through with phase 2. Because no architect is gonna spend 6 or 8 months going right down to every lock and key and light bulb for anything less than that kind of money.
Well, what I was trying to get at was to have some public meetings and get the approval through the public before we spend $400,000. But other people have different ideas about that.
Sure. And you can certainly do that if you want to get advisory or a vote. But one thing I'll caution you on is if they vote no, you're still holding the liability as the board in the county. Doesn't mean you don't have to fix it.
I realize that, but they're the ones that are paying for it.
Yep, no, I understand that. If that's what you wanted to do, you could do that.
If we go with PFIC, it's a rent own, the taxpayers of Walworth County won't be paying for it. Because there won't be an opt-out, and we don't have the money, as Becky can attest, in the budget to pay for a new jail.
You're talking the construction, what about the operation of it? Who's gonna pay for the operation of it?
As Brad has pointed out, their operation won't cost any more for a new one than what it does for this one. We don't have any options anymore, guys. We're out of options.
Well, better check with the people that are gonna pay for it.
And that'll
That's
be out of county if we go with PFIC. There won't be a vote. There won't be an opt-out of the tax freeze. It will be out of county money that was gonna have to pay for it. The same that's been covering the budget in this county for several years.
But Jim, that's, you're speculating a lot too. I don't care how else you're gonna look at it, that's speculating. Anything could happen. Every one of them counties could say, we're done. And them telling me who pays the bill. That's where I wanna know. If worst case scenario, tell me who's gonna pay that bill then.
I don't believe we're gonna run out of prisoners.
That doesn't matter though. Let's say the worst case scenario. You gotta look at the worst case. Who's gonna pay it? I don't think anywhere from Campbell. I'm pretty sure it's every taxpayer in Walworth County is gonna be paying that bill. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't believe it.
Well,
They're paying the operational part of it now.
As they have for several years, but the out of county income has subsidized that pretty good for the last 20 years or whatever. We pointed that out the other day when you made the motion to take the money out of the out of county income that we were putting in for buildings and put it in the general fund to cover the budget.
We had to, because they're over budget.
So we can't live without out of county income unless you're gonna go to vote to opt out of the tax freeze.
see, Jim, it's just like Brad disagreed with it. To me, to move forward with a project of this magnitude, we should have a guarantee that who's gonna be paying it.
You're not gonna have a
I don't
guarantee.
think I wanna guarantee that us, the rest of the taxpayers gotta pay this. I think the rest of the counties that want this jail should be guaranteed to
There's only two
pay it.
guarantees in life, Scott.
Well-
One is that we're gonna die, the next one we're gonna stand in front of the Lord for judgment. That's the only two guarantees in life.
Well, you're right there, but this is a different scenario. We're talking about tax dollars.
We
Brad
have,
didn't
we
agree
have
with
proven, Josh has proven by the income he's brought in. We aren't running out of little thugs to lock up, and we're not going to in the next 20 years for sure. With the way the economy,
If I could just provide a little input, here's where I kind of think you guys are at. You know, even though this kind of came through as an unorthodox way, the HKD drawing and estimate was done a little bit ahead of time. Normally you do your assessment first and then you do the HKG. That wouldn't have to be through them, but any architect would give you a schematic and a rough price. Although I think there's some things that the schematic is missing, which obviously will change that price. You'd get to that in the full development. But the bottom line is, guys, is your jail, as it sits today, is almost 120 years old, 118 years old. It cannot and will not meet your needs. You have to either close it and contract out or build something new. So that's kind of where you're at. And the contracting out, eventually the prices will surpass having your own, for sure. It's just a matter of how big you want to build. If you want to go for and I agree, Scott, there is no guarantee other than the statistics that we have as far as the numbers that show that what the trend is. There's no guarantee, that somebody else doesn't build a jail and pull some inmates away from you. But right now, with the trends the way they are, you have the ability to build and not only pay for your rent to lease option or a bond payment, whichever way you choose. You also have the ability to pay for your operating expenses. That's, of course, that is a little, like you said, nothing's guaranteed, but certainly the numbers aren't going away. And either you're going to give the money to another county or you're going to keep it in county, because nobody likes to admit it, but the need for a jail is never going to go away, and it's only going to increase. Especially given your geographic location there across the bridge and the drug issues you have, your need for jail beds is only going to rise. So I think it's a matter of what steps you want to take to get to your end game. And is that going to be close a contract or build, and how big?
Jamie?
I think that as a commission, you need to take the closure out of it. We cannot close this jail. It's gonna cost us over $1 million, I think at least, and we're gonna be sending it to Fouke County or some other county. Plus, we're gonna be eliminating 15 jobs at the jail. Plus, you still have to comply with the court and their desires, and I'll tell you right now, he's not gonna let us bus people over and have them sit in this building for 8 hours waiting to go to court. And once you close that jail, he's not gonna let you put them in that jail to store them. So we're gonna have to find an alternate place to let these prisoners sit. Yesterday we had 14. So when we bring them over and they have court in the morning or the afternoon, where are they gonna sit? In a van? Because once that jail's closed, he's not gonna let us use it. If we're gonna close it because it's not sufficient to house prisoners, it's not sufficient to house prisoners. So you guys need to take that off, because it's gonna be a logistical nightmare no matter what. And you have to comply with what the court wants to do. He's not just gonna let us house prisoners in this building for 8 hours a day on court days.
I would agree with that 100%. I just wanted to make sure you knew it was, it's an option because people brought it up. I don't think it's a wise option, but it had been brought up. The other thing is when you move forward, you can have options with your architect to say, okay, 50 beds may need our needs, but if we go 70, what's the additional cost and what's the payback? You don't have to make that decision today. You can make that decision through the process. And I think you're going to find that the added expense is going to be minimal based on the payback.
Well, Brad, how many different phases are there? I mean, you got in highlighted letters, this is my phase 2. How many phases are there in this process? Well,
that Scott basically was the intention when I first started talking with Josh and others about this, that you were going to move right into phase 2, which would be the full design, and then final phase is just building it. So basically, you know, if you choose to move forward with, go with an RFP to hire an architect and do full design, that's what I proposed phase 2. Now, if you wanted me to stand by and check on their work while they constructed it, that's a different thing. But that's the end of it.
So really, you're
Like
not,
I said, go ahead.
sorry about that. Then are you considered like the general contractor then, or is that what you are then?
No.
Okay, I mean, I'm just curious.
I'm simply your consultant to make sure that they're meeting your needs and you're getting a jail that's built to a solid jail practices spec that's gonna meet your needs, and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're gonna have a architect, a construction manager, and depending on which finance option you go with, you may have some oversight through somebody else as well. But I'm simply your representative because whether any architect or construction manager wants to admit it, they're in the business to make money. And we're gonna make sure that that money is earned, so you get what you want and what you need in the future. I've seen far too many jails be built with no input, and then 5 or 10 years later, they're just shaking their heads, what happened to us here?
Brad, so if the board would decide to approve phase 2, does that mean that automatically the 400,000 will need to be paid?
No, that's an estimate. Well, if you decide to move forward with phase 2, what I would do is work with you to put an RFP out for an architect, and you would get proposals from architects, and normally you would narrow it down to 3 and then have 3 or so come in and do presentations to the commission, and then we would choose it, and they'll give you an estimate at that time. The other thing I want to be kind of put on the last paragraph of that email is I have no problem if the phase 2, it seems, as far as my part of it, if it seems too gray or too, I have no problem working by the hour plus expenses, and then at any time you could change that to contractual for one. Because I do think, and Josh, forgive me up front, I do think you could use some help with some operational planning in the meantime as well. Because we did the assessment for NIC, and you'd be remiss if you didn't work on some of that stuff regardless in the process, because you want to walk into a new jail. If you choose that route, you want to walk into a new jail with your operations operating at the highest level you can. You don't want to ignore some of these things. So I could certainly help in that area too if you wanted to. But I just threw that out as an option if you're not comfortable with the way phase 2 is laid out. Phase 2, those steps in that phase 2 are just general from what I am typically used to with working with architects. Could be more meetings, could be less.
So those meetings that you said are included, do they include also talking at public meetings, or is that just commission?
If they're the same day, I have no problem doing whatever they are the same day. If I make a special trip, then we'd have to make some arrangements. That may be the flexibility of just doing an hourly plus expenses contract until you get to where you want to go. It sounds like there's some resistance to actually say, okay, let's go for it and get the architect and design this to full design. If you wanted to do public meetings, before you could do that, but again, it comes back, the liability lies on the commission members, regardless of a yes or no vote.
Some of us went down to Falk and looked at their jail down there. They built a nice jail, but I don't think it would meet our needs here. Do you, Josh?
Yeah, it's a nice building. I went also, and I saw some things that I would do different, but that's on any project.
Yeah.
How many beds is theirs?
I was just gonna ask how many beds.
32 or 42 beds. What did he tell us?
My same question was how many beds?
Oh,
Brad asked the same question I had.
How many beds?
I wanna say, I think it was around 30.
I think it's a 32 bed
30,
facility.
32 beds, if I remember right.
And again, with the bed numbers, you can give some direction on that and give some options on, if you wanna build a jail for your needs only, fine, but you're gonna be stuck with the building cost and right now you're at what, 1.2 million operating costs every year?
Something like that.
So you won't have any rental income to pay for that, but you can go through that design process and they can do options as far as, okay, here's the 50, here's 70, or whatever you choose. Remember, 70 beds is only a capacity of 60, looking at that 85%.
What we need to do is look down the road, what is our needs gonna be in 30 or 40 years? So this board isn't revisiting this like we are with the new part there. The other day, 3 or 4 weeks ago, if I understood right, we had 34 in custody in court that day. So 32 bed jail,
20,
mold fizz.
24, Jim.
24?
24
I
in
thought-
custody, yeah.
And 29 on July 10th?
Basically, those were days when we didn't have, normally we have court every Monday in Walworth County. Sometimes the unified judicial system cannot accommodate that because they don't have a judge. And so in those particular cases, that's when you run the high inmate time,
They sit
where we have the 24 and the 29 in custody, if those are the two. I know there was the one where we had the 24 in custody. That was basically, because we didn't have court the week before, and they accumulate, because they have to make their initial appearance and they can't postpone. So,
And we have to plan for that.
yeah, you're not gonna get always guaranteed a judge every, we're supposed to, but that's just,
Is the commission satisfied with the preliminary plan that HKG provided has considered your program needs? Have you guys looked at that as far as, has it addressed like your parking, the square footage need for future courts?
I disagree with a lot of what's on there. I don't think we need an office for every sheriff deputy and half of the office staff. We got 11 offices over there for the drawing that they provided.
So you think there's too much square footage?
I think it's being utilized wrong.
Yeah, and that's, you can certainly work on that as through the process, but I guess my first view of the plan was one, on the site that you have there, that square block where your building is, it seems like you're making a commitment to keep the operations there, so one of the things you're gonna wanna do is plot in future courts, parking, and those sort of things to make sure they're all gonna fit there. Because them are necessities. As far as the square footage for the sheriff's office, certainly that can be debated. As far as the jail, I would say that it's missing a few square feet because there's no health office, there's no exercise space. So, maybe a wash adding here and taking off there, but I would say the jail was a little undersized for the beds as far as the support spaces. But that's through that architectural process. If you would have done, if HKG would have came in after my phase 1 and done it, that may have been included in there, but it's not. And you can make that up in the full architectural if you want. Or typically, what I'm used to is that architectural phase costs. And again, you go out for RFP for that as well, but that usually would cost the county less than $50,000. So they do a full program assessment on the needs and the square footage, and then they lay it out on the grounds that you're going to build on. So you have a schematic of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, Brad, this is Jim. I don't think what HK drew for us is set in stone. It's a long way from it. They were just nice enough
No, I
to
agree.
remodel that or redo it after, when we went and visited with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. All it is a schematic, but my concern is does the schematic take into account the entire operations there as far as looking at parking needs and future courts and things like that?
We have discussed that, but we haven't went that far really for them to.
Yeah.
We've discussed adding a courtroom onto that facility and parking and stuff, but
Yeah.
it hasn't,
And you
never
can
gone any further.
You can incorporate that into the architectural process to be done. But I guess, again, where I stand and my advice is you can't continue to operate the current jail. You have to do something. Sounds like your attorney is not in favor of closing, so I mean,
I'm just
But
saying,
you
Brad,
will-
that I just don't think closure is feasible, given the number of
I don't either.
prisoners that we're going to have to transport every time there's court, and how we're going to house them once they get to the courthouse. Because.
I agree also. In my phase one, I pointed that out, that it's going to be safety issues and your cost eventually will surpass your operational costs now. But I would think, liability-wise, from an attorney's standpoint, I'm not sure how you could possibly defend a lawsuit with your current operation. I just don't think you can. You've got to do something.
We could cut down on how many people we're taking in.
Then you cut out your revenue that you're gonna pay for it with.
We're losing money taking marshals, inmates.
We ain't
in.
losing money. It don't cost us $60 a day to take a person in.
Okay.
So is phase two set in stone, or can you change it, or it just seems like there's, I don't know, what's your thoughts?
Change it as in, what would you like to see changed?
Well, in my email I sent to you, it just seemed like there was, different things, and I didn't know if that was just how you were gonna have it, or if you could just, because the cost just seems a little high for the
Well-
fees.
But that's his consultant fees, and it doesn't make any difference whether you have him or somebody else, you're gonna have consultant fees. And he's the one person that's the expert in that field, and you're gonna have to pay no matter whether you have him or anybody else. And as far as I'm concerned, we'd like to have somebody that knows what they're doing. Yes,
Brad, I have a question for you, and this is kind of a hypothetical, so, are you basically saying that this group needs to decide whether it wants to build, remodel, or maintain before they need to be decided on that front before they even go forward with anything else? Is that a fair statement?
are you still there, Brad?
Hello?
Brad?
Your dial?
Yeah, go ahead.
Six 644-5712.
Just one mobile dialer.
Six 644.
His phone's off, or he's trying to call us back at the same time.
She's got it.
I'll get this one. No. Yeah. If more people come, can you come up and bring it? Okay.
Go ahead and try again, Becky.
You have 4 minutes before the bid opening, we have to do that right at 10.
Yep, we'll just stop what we're doing, you can get the bid open.
Do we have me?
Yep, we're back again.
Yep.
Okay,
I heard 2 beeps and I was gone.
yeah.
Brad, this is Jamie here. I just have a question, and I'm kind of, is it your opinion that the county needs to decide whether they're going to build or remodel before we even go forward with any of this yet? Or not necessarily?
No, I mean, you need to rule that option as remodeling out at some point, because we provided that cost estimate. In my mind, it makes absolutely no sense to take a 1909 building and do anything with it.
And then if they ruled out everything except for build, do we need to come to a decision before we move forward on basically the general number of beds we're going to have and whether there's going to be a JDC and some of those other issues? Is that kind of something we need to decide also before going forward?
Yes and no. You need to make a decision on where you're going to go as far as what it's going to include. You can put options in there. You can put the JDC could be an optional price,
Okay,
and they can give you okay, here's the main jail.
but as a group, we're gonna need to decide some of that ahead of time.
Yep.
We're kind of just
Yep.
spinning our wheels, is that?
At some point, you're going to need, I wouldn't say ahead of time, but at some point, you're going to need to decide on the numbers, the number of beds for sure, give them the least options to work with. As far as the JDC, that could be an add-on or a deduct
And
at any time.
once we come to that, is that then the time that, well, never mind, I answered my own question, never mind.
Brad, so basically in your opinion, closing is out and remodeling is out, so the only option is to build.
That would be my advice, it's just a matter of how big. How much money do you want to spend of your own, versus pay for it by rentals?
Anybody else have any questions, Brad?
I don't think I answered Melissa's question before I got cut off there. That's typically the process I'm used to. The architect will actually set the number of meetings as far as who they have for, when they bring in their different expertise area people. But like I said, we can go ahead just by an hourly contract until we get things set where you want it, go through the RFP process, or stay on that process. It doesn't matter to me. But as far as reducing that lump sum rate, I've pared that thing down as much as I possibly can. We could certainly go back to the hourly rate. You could monitor it each month. I don't have any issue with that.
Can we just do the hourly right then? Is that okay with everybody?
We haven't approved it yet.
Well, we need someone, we need a professional to
We're gonna
help us.
have to have a consultant,
Yeah.
and we should go to the,
It's 10 o'clock, right?
We have our 10 o'clock bid opening now, Brad.
Just
We've only
Okay.
got one bid if he wants to stay on the line.
Just hang on, Brad,
Just
we're
hang
gonna
on.
do a bid opening.
Okay.
Okay, we have one contract from JDH Construction Incorporated out of Aberdeen.
What's the alternate number for?
Provides for contract and furnishings, CDX pressure treated and fire resistant sheet. We just table this till later in the meeting. Put this on hold so I can just have a quick second to go over it with Scott, so we can look at it.
Okay.
It won't be long. Okay. I'll just step out right now.
Why don't you go with
Do you want me to leave?
No, no,
Okay.
you guys meet together.
Yeah, you-
The three of you guys meet
Okay.
together.
Have you had a chance?
We're just gonna postpone this for a little bit. Okay. Now back to Brad.
I'm here.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? We're gonna have to pay, the way I feel, we're gonna have to pay for a contract no matter what we do. And, I think if we go on an hourly basis, I think it's gonna be more, I think we should just go with this, the consultant on phase 2. What do you think, Jim?
If we enter into a contract with PFIC, that all rolled into the, and they are the ones that line up the consultant.
Sorry about that.
And they'll work with us to line up the consultant, the engineer, and they'll oversee that whole process.
And that certainly will be a separate, it was one decision to move forward, it's another decision on what finance option you're gonna be. And I'm sure, you get some advice from that internally, but those decisions either have to be made together, but there's gotta be a record of those decisions.
I have a question. So the hourly wage, is that specifically for the phase 2, or is that just an hourly wage for a contract with you for services?
Anything. If you want, that way it'd be anything you want me to do. And like I said, I can, at any time we could go, you can go through, some public meetings and some RFP process with the architect, and then if you get a more detailed schedule from the architect, if you want to switch and have me provide a proposal at that time, I can certainly do that. It certainly provides you more flexibility.
Brad, is that $100 an hour, that's your travel time wage as well?
Yep.
Anything else? I'd like to have a motion to approve phase 2.
I so move.
Okay. Is there any second to that? I will second that. Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve phase 2 of the contract with Brad.
In my mind, we don't have much option. If we'd have done this 5 years ago, it would have cost the county $4 million less. Is what the investors, or the financial guys said. So if we put it off another 5 years, maybe another probably $4 to $5 million, there's talk of raising the interest rate again. Yet this year, as you're on the news, and every time the interest rate is one point, it raises the cost of your facility 30% in a 30-year note. Like Josh said, we kicked this can down the road a long time. We just will do something.
I'm not opposed to it, I would just like to see some public meetings happen so people have an idea of what's going on, instead of.
I don't have any problem with that, but I think we should have a plan. And,
I'm saying we should, before we decide to spend $400,000, we should at least let the public know what's going on. And then we can get their input and then decide.
what's our options? We have no option. Housing out of county is not an option. The other day when they had 24 in custody, our staff found 6 empty beds in the state. So housing out of county is not an option.
No, but Jim, the option is, I believe the taxpayers would tell us which direction we really should go, whether we should worry about Walworth County or worry about 18 other counties. That's my theory on it.
In my mind, we need to worry about Walworth County, but we need to build a jail that's gonna fit our needs 30 or 40 years down the road, and our numbers are not going down. And there's no reason why we don't rent them beds out while we got them. Until eventually, I'm convinced our jail will be full of Walworth County prisoners. The same as Sioux Falls, Watertown, Brookings, Aberdeen, Rapid City, Pierre, all the other jails in the country.
But I got a news flash for you though, Jim, though. When you keep talking 30, 40 years down the road, I got some sad news. That jail over there is only 20 years old. As far as I'm concerned, it's junk, and you agree too. So you keep talking 30 or 40 years down the road, when let's say we do build a new jail, more than likely, that jail is gonna be obsolete. You'll be building another jail in 30
That
or
doesn't
40
have
years.
anything to do with this.
You're the one, you guys want to talk 30, 40 years down the road, so why wouldn't it?
There are some things done wrong in this new edition.
What's to say it won't happen again?
That's why we have people
That's
like
that's where
Brad
we want, that's where we
and,
want Brad, so we don't have that problem again.
and Kim Stecker and the project managers. That's why we hired them instead of doing it on our own like they did that one. With the
Am I allowed to comment during this discussion phase?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's just a couple of things to take into consideration. I think what I'm hearing is I don't think there's any argument. I mean, there may be some argument from certain individuals, but the issue is you need to build on how big, right? So how big has to do with whether or not you're going to contract or build for the future needs or just have the ability to build on it. So if you make the decision to move forward, the sized options can be presented at a later point through the different cost estimates. If you're following me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you get the architect on board and say, okay, we want to know what this costs and what this costs, and then we're going to take it to the public and they're going to decide if it's going to be a 50-bed jail or a 70-bed jail or whatever those numbers are you decide. So you can do that through the process. And like I said before, I'm not opposed to starting out at an hourly rate if you wanted to do till we get the process moving and you're more comfortable with what it's all going to include. We could certainly do the full, once the architect's on board, we can get that schedule of meetings and narrow it down so you're more comfortable with a large price item versus you have now. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
I agree that we should do the hourly, just for now, because we can always change it to an actual phase 2 then, right?
Yep. And the time to do that is once the architect's on board and they provide you a 6 or 8 month schedule. And then I can look at that schedule and give you a very concrete number.
And I would like to stress also that I think in past meetings, and I don't think the commission can disagree with me, along with our auditor, it is important that we do have revenue from that jail. I don't think that's to lack of a better term, cutting our own throat to keep the tax burden off of our constituents, the people that vote us in and want us to do, vote us in to do this job. I think we need to think wholeheartedly here, and I just don't think cutting revenue out is a good idea, because we all know as we sit here in this meeting today and previous ones that we know that the jail revenue is important to the county. I don't think any one of us here can say that it isn't.
And I think you have to remember too, based on Josh's comments, you're at 1.2 million a year operating, and you're looking at a $400 or $500 annual payment. So you're nearing that $2 million without income. That's all on you.
Okay, we've got a question here, or a comment.
I have a question for Brad. If the county went with your second phase and you charged them by the hour, if they ever switched and took the full deal, would you credit for the hours that you've been paid?
Did you hear that, John? Or Brad?
The new bid would be based on what's left to do in the future. So would it be just a deduction? Not necessarily, because you may have me do other things in between here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
And is this the former sheriff speaking?
Yeah.
It is.
I recognize the voice. I do want to comment on, and I'm not looking to pick an argument, but I do want to comment on the current jail. So it was built in 1909, and you did it sounds like a $400,000 addition that's 20 years old. If you look at, and again, somebody had to approve that in the county. That $400,000 that took you 20 years forward, and the income you got out of that, even though it's settling and it wasn't the best design, you have by far gotten your money out of that addition.
Thank you.
Never thought of it that way.
When they built that addition at that time, that mill levy adjusted in their time that they paid Rod between 10 and 12 cents per thousand to the taxpayer. That was the actual mill levy to pay off that jail.
Any other discussion? Motion has been made and seconded already to,
Please ask, sorry, please ask questions, you guys. That's why I got Brad on the phone. He's the expert here. That's why I had him come in here.
I think there's been at least one person that said they've thought about maybe wanting to adjust it to hourly.
Yeah.
For a period of time, so I don't know if you wanted to reconsider the motion or.
I need clarification on the motion,
Yeah, I
whether
was
it's
just going to ask
the
that also.
28,000 or the hourly, we need to clarify that on this motion.
Mr. Haupt? You made the motion.
My motion was for the 28,000, but I'm not hung up on that. It doesn't wouldn't bother me a bit if we went to the hourly rate.
Well, I would be more comfortable if it was hourly just for now.
So I would amend my motion to include the hourly rate instead of if that moves us forward.
Does that specify everything you need, Vicki?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment? Go the hourly rate?
Second.
Okay, we have to vote on the hourly, the second amendment first. All those in favor of going to the hourly rate, say aye.
Aye.
We'll go through roll call. Jim?
Yes.
Okay,
Just
Okay.
slow down, please. Okay, so right now we're voting on amending the motion,
Yeah,
correct?
Not the motion itself,
Not the
just that
motion
the
itself.
motion is going to be amended
yeah,
to an hourly rate rather than a lump sum.
right.
Okay, go ahead.
Roll call, Jim,
Yes.
Scott,
Nay.
Melissa?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So is this then hourly for his services or for phase two?
For phase 2 of his services.
I think for his services.
Yeah, it's not really considered phase two because
You're
we're
not
gonna pick
doing
and
the lump
choose what
sum.
we want him to do at
I
this
just
point.
wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Then yes.
Kevin?
Nay.
Okay. I will vote yes.
So now we have it amended to
Hourly rate.
an hourly rate for services. So now we need to vote on that motion, correct, Becky?
Right.
On the amended motion.
On the amended motion to go to an hourly rate.
Is that how you have it down, Becky? Okay,
Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, roll call on that. Kevin?
Nay.
Melissa?
Yes.
Scott?
Nay.
Jim?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, anything else?
Can I just, so at some point you're gonna have to, vote to proceed with that, you know, the hiring of the architect and whatnot,
Yeah.
or go out for RFP. So I don't know how we move forward from the fact that you've approved working with me for $100 plus expenses, to give me, you know, permission to work with whomever to move it forward. The other things is, who do you want me to take my direction from and things like that. I don't know if you're gonna have a committee or an individual or how you wanna do that, but that's entirely, those things you guys need to decide. I'll send you a revised hourly, you know,
Okay.
a contract, but
Basically, a decision needs to be made on who's going to request what from you,
right.
instead of 5 commissioners calling you with each of their own requests.
Right, and, you know, eventually I'm gonna have to work with everybody, yourself included, Josh. You know, I'm assuming if you go to RFP for an architect, that the auditor's office is, do you draft that or do you work with that process?
Jamie?
basically, I think Becky's right, is what we should probably do is have the commission appoint a group of 2 or 3 that is basically going to, okay the process on how they wanna proceed, what they want you to do, and then they can provide feedback to the commission at every meeting. That way, there's no, having you do 2 different jobs that are kind of defeating each other, so, and we can, have Brad amend the contract, and then what we'll have to do is, in the open meeting, determine who is going to basically supervise what Brad is doing and who's going to, and that same group would provide feedback back to the commission, so the commission knows what is going on. And that's kind of what you're looking for, right, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you don't have a huge commission body, but it makes sense to have a committee, you know, of 2 people plus whatever jail staff and sheriff staff and auditor and whoever else you think needs to be on that committee. And then that committee would have a chairperson or whatnot to move this process forward.
Okay. Who would like to be on that committee? Jim? Who else?
You can definitely need the sheriff.
Yeah,
And I
sheriff.
would say at least, you can't have more than 3 commissioners, or you can't have 3, you can only have 2 commissioners, because then you have the open meeting issue.
Becky would be on it.
Becky could be on test, and we wouldn't have an open meeting issue.
Scott, Kevin, would you be interested?
I could. Unless you want to.
Melissa had her hand up too.
Or you have your hand up? Okay.
That would put us at 3 though.
Yeah.
sure.
So do you wanna do Walworth, Hauk,
That's
Bull,
all right.
myself, Jamie?
Sure.
How does that work then as far as if you have to, is that a voting body then?
No.
No, just, okay, just a working
We've
group?
got 2 commissioners is all.
Yep.
Okay,
So basically, I think, Brad, what the intention is going to be is that basically most of your work is going to be with the sheriff. Sheriff will then kind of update by email or short meetings the group, and then the group will say, yes, this is what we should do, or not what we should do, and then present that decision to the commission.
Okay.
What we're doing, that's kind of how everybody's looking at it, is that right? And does that sound all right to you, Brad?
yep, not a problem.
That way I think things can be sped up a little bit too, rather than having to wait for every meeting to say, yep, we decided this, or we're going to do that, and
You know, since this is a, not that I don't wanna do it, Amy, but I think it's a good idea to have one of the commissioners be main contact, because he's working for you guys, not me. Okay, yes, you guys are the main decision makers, that's why we're at where we're at. So I think it should be a commissioner.
Okay. Brad, would you contact Jim Hauk then?
Sure, I can do that.
so he will be your go-through then
Yeah.
for the group, and the groups
But the
go through.
groups should decide what hours he spends on what.
Correct.
Or,
Right, and basically, I think we can do a lot of this by email. And if someone from the group is going to say, I think we should put this in front of the commission, I think there's plenty of us that will agree to do that. And so that way, email's the greatest way to do a lot of this. And then-
however, an extra commissioner cannot be included in any of these emails, or you guys are gonna be breaking the open meeting laws.
That is correct.
Right.
So do not forget that when you're sending emails out.
So basically, the point of contact for the group to Brad will be Commissioner Hauk, and from Brad to the group will be Commissioner Hauk. And again, yeah, we have to really pay attention to the open meeting rule, because we already have 2 commissioners on this group. But I think there's gonna be enough of, I can definitely see a concern of, holy smokes, you guys spent a lot of money without getting the commission's approval or approved. But I think there's enough red flags on this group that that's not necessarily going to happen. We have the auditor and 2 commissioners, and so I think, wouldn't you agree, Becky?
It could end up going that way.
I mean, if it
And
gets to a
hopefully it
problem, I think
doesn't
there's enough
start.
people that are going to say, we need to bring this to the commission before we move
Right.
forward,
Yes.
so. And if not, we pretty much have to have the whole group to agree anyhow, so.
So what I'll do then when I send this updated contract is kind of send you a list of steps, you know, that would be next steps, and then you as a committee can meet, and I can certainly meet by phone and talk about what processes we take next and what your committee meeting schedule will be or whatnot.
Correct. And I think a lot of this we can do by email, with questions, answers, things like that, because I don't think we're gonna do anything super significant over the next, month or so, except figure out where we're gonna go.
I don't know if you got them all, Brad, but I can get you all the emails.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Bye.
Discussion regarding PFIC, I guess we don't need to, we don't need to discuss that at this point. Correct?
Right, can we possibly just get back to the bid
Oh, yep, sorry.
and then,
Yep, okay. I forgot.
Price came in a little bit higher than anticipated. I don't know if that's a factor of just the complexity of the project or more of the season. I tend to think that the project is a little more complex than we originally thought it was, and that there's not a lot of general contractors that'd be beating down the door to try and take on something like this with the storm sewer tie-in and whatnot, so I tend to think that if that's more a factor in the price than the time of the year, especially since they propose to complete the project within 170 days, which gives them a pretty wide window for completion. So, would you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah.
So, I guess it would be my recommendation to move forward with it if you're going to commit to keeping this building operational for the foreseeable future.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I agree on that. Well, what are they gonna do? I mean, if you go to alternate one there, it's 184,000 without the alternate, you gotta add that 17.
I wouldn't propose adding the alternate in there, I would say.
Then what, then tell me how's the process gonna be done then if they, it's obvious they must think that they need to do that, so what are they gonna do?
I think
I
it was
guess I'm
just,
not understanding
it was
what you're
just
gonna
put
do
in
then.
as an option for fireproofing, basically. So,
It's not a
not a
requirement.
requirement, no.
It was done as a pricing, if there's a pricing advantage, if you wanted to do it. The other alternate, or the other unit price is for if when the roof comes off, if we're reusing insulation up there, if there's damaged insulation, per board, what it would take to replace that. I don't think we should anticipate much of that. I've been in that attic and maybe around the roof drains, there's been some issues, but pretty small.
What kind of warranty is on that thing?
I believe it's 20-year on that roof. And that's a manufacturer's warranty, it's not the contractor's warranty. There's probably a John Mansville. When we get the shop drawings back, we learn who their supplier is, but that's who supplies the warranty, is a manufacturer of the roof. They come and inspect it when it's done, and then give you the warranty.
Just to clarify,
Oh, go ahead.
just to clarify for the video, the bid was
$84,700.
we never did state it, we just read it.
So in your mind, this will take care of all of our roofing issues? Yes, yes. We'll make a motion to accept the bid.
Okay, motion has been made to accept the bid. Need a second?
A second.
Okay, motion has been made and second.
Just the base bid, not the alternate bid.
The base bid of $184,700.
Yep.
Motion has been made and second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll have a roll call on that. Jim?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. We're accepted a bid for $184,700.
You voted yes?
Yes. All right, go ahead. Josh.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else to discuss, but the PFIC right now, is everybody on board with that?
Just need to get that number from you, Scott.
No, the PFIC, the financing, we're not to that point yet, so.
Just make a copy of this.
No one, check? Okay, next one, I shared some correspondence with you guys from myself, and one of those is just a maintenance thing, things that I'm looking at down, I mean, this is future planning, obviously, and whatever the board decides. Dated the November 7th, reference the letter that's I sent out for the maintenance issues. Okay. And then the other one was just a letter from the last report that we got from Brad and whatnot that I sent to you guys. Just some my feelings on it. And I just shared it with you because I just think the board needs to know the ideas and stuff behind it. Not that you don't, but like I said, just sharing those with you because we all have different opinions. And that's why we're here to discuss things. Yes, Kevin?
My idea, I agree that, there's some issues over there for maintenance. My thing would be to provide a detailed list of what you're actually needing done. Instead of just saying electricity, do I need one outlet or do I need to replace all the lines in there, or?
Not all the lines, but there's some electrical issues
I'm
that,
saying it would help out if we had a list of what you actually needed, instead of just saying electricity. If we had an idea, then it could help out in the budget process
sure,
to put it in the budget, so we're not
We can
just
do that.
pulling it out of the air.
nope, we can do that. Obviously, I gotta have a safe way to get them out, so I'm looking at ways to get that fire escape operating again, so I mean, that's self-explanatory. Windows and doors, you know, the windows are shot over there, not in the new, in the addition, but obviously the old. And it's gonna take quite a bit of an upgrade to do doors, those are expensive. But it's just things that I'm looking at down the road, not,
It would help.
nothing that I'm making this, you know, that I'm gonna do this year. The plumbing thing, that is the old pipes, I don't know, Scott, if you've ever looked at them, but if you ever have a chance with the pipes that it'd be the same pipes that probably feed the courthouse, I'm guessing. I've been down there, you touch them and they spray water back at you. The old cast iron, they're very rusty and it's very, that's what's, messing a lot of our stuff up as far as, mechanisms working, because there's a lot of sediment with it. So, that's coming in through, you know, into the jail and the pipes and stuff. But it's mainly the main pipes that feed the jail. Does that make sense? Okay. That's what my idea of the plumbing was, because to me, if we fix that, it would help a lot of things on the interior. So, but no, we can certainly do that, yeah.
It would just help out so we could budget for it.
Yep. And, the pony training is the last thing on there. We did have that set up. Remember, that's the free training for planning of new institutions is what it's called, and it's, the 15th, 16th, and 17th.
14, 15, 16.
14, 15, 16, sorry, my bad. Thank you.
1 month.
This month.
Next week.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's, I was kind of waiting to see, but it sounds like the more I thought about it, you guys, it's still a worthwhile training and we should go through it. I think it would help us make, you know, with some decision making. So,
What time is it?
it's gonna be 8 to 5.
8 to 5.
They're not from here, the instructors, they're flying in, so.
It'll be here.
Tentatively, I'm looking at hosting it at the City Hall in Mulbridge. It's got the capability and needs that they want. They need Wi-Fi and some laptops and all kinds of happy stuff. So Ryan's got a list too that he's gonna help put together for it, so.
Ryan's working with us on that. So, again, that's the pony training, the planning of new institutions is what it stands for. I've got 11 or 12 that are signed up, including the auditor,
Where is this?
City Hall, Norwich. And the state's attorney, along with commissioners, myself, Ryan, you're on there, Justin. I did send the link out to get signed up. I sent that to you, Becky. You'll probably have to
When did you send it?
this morning. So,
I haven't done it.
yes, I just got it forwarded to me.
How many commissioners are going to attend?
Well, I got all of them down, so.
So you're probably gonna have to publish that they're gonna be in
You won't?
attendance,
Okay.
if we're gonna have a quorum.
And I knew we were gonna run into that. It's
It
it's
wouldn't hurt
tough.
to publish that anyway, whether we're gonna have a quorum or not.
Well, we'll post the agenda, there won't be much for minutes,
Correct.
just that we were there.
That way, if somebody wants to come in part-time, we're not gonna run into open meeting issues, so say if you wanna attend for half a day or
But
something like that.
we have to allow anybody that wants to come in, come in.
Correct.
It's not gonna be a closed room.
Right.
I'm not sure I'll be here the last day of it, but I'll be here for the first two for sure. I'll know that tomorrow.
So you'll have that covered in, Becky.
Give them some kind of agenda of what they're gonna have. Josh?
Yes.
Yeah, I can share that with you. I'll give it to him and he can pour it out.
That would be better, you know,
Sure.
than if you try to.
So this is the last
Move
day.
over, get there for part of it or something, or, yeah, you know.
The last day we're
Everybody's
looking to
busy, I
do
know
that.
Kevin's busy, Melissa, it's hard for you, it's hard for all of us to get away, I know that.
Out of curiosity, why is it gonna be in Woolwich?
Because of the set of what, the requirements that of what we need. I guess they have, do we have the projector here, do we have?
Yeah.
I mean, we can change the location at any
Yeah,
time.
Mulberge isn't set in stone, they just need a facility that's gonna hold up to 15 of us, and up to 15 of us, they want 5 at a table, if possible, and laptops at each table, so 3 laptops, and the Wi-Fi capabilities, and a projector, and a couple of easels with paper, and whatever those, I gave it to Ryan too, I can't remember it all off the top of my head, but
And that's all, and I guess that's all I got, unless you guys have anything else for me. Okay, thanks for your time, and thanks for letting Brad call in and have a conversation with you guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to 15, discuss employee health insurance options.
Hope you guys took the time to review that information that was provided. Please, day to make a decision. You have my recommendation, but ultimately the choice is yours.
You recommend Plan 2, right?
That would be my recommendation, yep. So long as the county provides that $1,000 to every employee's HSA account.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I know we have some department heads here. I think we should probably get some feedback from them too
Yeah.
with what we're going to decide, and I'd like to at least grab my employees to see if they want to participate. I know one of them wanted to sit and had some questions and stuff, so if, and also I need to use the restroom, so if we want to take a break.
Okay, we'll take a break until 10 again. We'll call the meeting back to order. We have some of our employees here. Come on in.
No, I'm here.
Yeah, come on down, there's seats.
There's a place to sit.
You can come in and sit down, I'll buy you.
You guys can come in.
Did, I like that.
Come on in, please.
Cause I didn't think there was any chance.
We always make room.
Okay. Some of you have some questions that you want to answer?
As far as the highway department goes, the guys prefer the PPO goals over the HSA. None of them are really comfortable with the HSA, but ultimately it's up to you guys what you wanna do. But that's their opinions.
Why would they like it that way?
They're just very uncomfortable with the HSA.
What's basically the difference between the two, Ryan?
HSA is a little bit different way. It puts a lot of the upfront cost on the employee, or in this case, on the county with the $1,000 contribution that they'd be making to the employee's HSA account. Basically, the max amount that you're gonna pay comes down, but a lot of those upfront costs go directly to you. There's no co-pays when you go to the doctor. There's No, none of that stuff. Your deductible and your out-of-pocket max are basically the same. It's $2,500. With the county's $1,000 contribution, the most you're gonna pay out of your pocket is gonna be $1,500 for single coverage. But you're gonna pay that as you go to the doctor. So you go to the doctor, you're not just gonna pay $25. You're gonna pay $300 or whatever an office visit costs. You know, if you don't go that much, that $1,000 you get from the county might cover you for the whole year. If you go a lot, you're only gonna end up paying $1,500 of your old money. So it's trying to strike that balance there. The impetus for it all is that in transitioning to the 1,000 PPO gold plan, the deductibles didn't increase that much, but the out-of-pocket max does. And that's what was concerning to me, because it does not take long to get into that. One surgery, you know, anything like that, couple nights hospital stay, you're going to end up basically meeting that out-of-pocket max. And for single, you're talking $4,000, whereas right now our out-of-pocket max for single is $1,500. So trying to keep that threshold similar to what it is now was the reason that I thought that this might be a better option. Yes, Brett?
I have a question on the PPO gold while you're speaking about it. In parentheses, when you had sent that out to all of us, it had said it doesn't cover diagnostic like x-rays and things like that, some kind of testing it said that it didn't cover. Could you clarify that for me, or did I just misread that?
Yeah, that's, generally those are in addition to your copay. Like, your copay when you go to the doctor's office covers your office visit, basically. It doesn't cover reading x-rays, it doesn't cover if you get admitted to the hospital. That's basically what that means. That would come off of your deductible. That isn't covered by your copay.
Okay, so it's not like it is now where it's a separate deal, and if per se I had a diagnostic test done and I saw the doctor, the doctors would go in and I'd pay that percentage, because it's a percentage now, just not $25.
Right.
And if I did the diagnostic test that he ordered, then I would pay a percentage on that as
Yeah,
well.
that's the way it is right now. Yeah, you're paying
And would
10% of everything. Right?
Would it be the same with the PPO?
You would have your copay that you pay for the office visit portion, and then you would pay 20% of any sort of hospitalization or diagnostics. Actually, you pay 100% of it till your deductible is met. After your deductible, you're gonna pay 20% of all of it. So, say you go in, you pay your $25 for your office visit copay, you have an x-ray, you're gonna pay, I don't know, $17 to have them read the x-ray. If you get hospitalized, you're gonna pay that full amount up until you meet your $1,000 deductible. And then after that, you're gonna pay 20% of everything up to your $4,000 out-of-pocket max.
I have 2 questions. It says these amounts are double for out-of-network providers. So, does that include Mayo Clinic? Because I doctor there regularly.
It's still Walmart, so you're still gonna have the same network.
Okay, and then the family, say for next year when I have my baby, is that gonna be $8,000 for me out of my pocket?
Yep, sure will.
And that would be under which plan, Becky?
The
PPO.
1,000 PPO.
Now, if you would go to, it would essentially be 4,000 for you under the HSA.
So it's kind of the big difference is what the max deductibles are, Ryan?
The out-of-pocket max, yeah, that's the one that.
So on the PPO gold, the out of max pocket would be if you're single, 4,000, and if you're a family, it's 8,000. And if we're on the HSA 2,500, the maximum would be 3,450 or 6,900 family, is that
You
right?
must be looking at the out-of-network stuff, right?
Oh, I don't know.
1,500 to 4,000.
Yeah, 1,500 to 4,000 is what it would be basically,
Oh,
because the
okay.
county's contributing to that $1,000 to.
But that has to be part of it, that the commission agrees to
Right,
put
absolutely.
$1,000 in every employee's HSA
Okay, I was
at
reading
the first
from
of the
that.
year.
So
And will
really,
that- Go ahead.
so basically then, there's a significant max between the HSA 2,500 and the PPO gold then.
Yeah.
Because the max family would have under the HSA 2,500 would be 4,000 compared to 8,000 on the PPO Gold for families.
Yeah.
And basically, 4,000 on the PPO Gold is your out-of-pocket max, and 1,500 is on the HSA, 2,500.
Brendan?
You save the money by putting more of the burden on the employee, you know, of the upfront cost burden on the employee is how it works, basically.
Yeah. You have a question?
So, in my eyes, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest battle that you have with the HSA is that it takes about 2 years to get people, or 1.5 to 2 years to get them adjusted to that. Because we're not used to putting out $2,500 out of pocket right away. And let's be perfectly honest, I loved your letter, but that $1,000, I don't think there's anybody in the courthouse that's gonna roll over that $1,000.
Yeah, it all
Because
depends,
everybody
yeah.
has,
Few doctor's visits and
absolutely,
stuff, you're gonna eat it up, yeah.
so if it's agreed upon that the commissioners put in the 1,000, then we're left with the next 1,500.
Yep.
With the idea that if we put $60 in every paycheck, if we're just a single, then that should almost give us that $1,500. Otherwise, we'll just have to pay it up front. So the biggest battle is getting the change from all of a sudden, you have to pay $2,500 and there's no co-pays, no nothing. Instead of just being a co-pay and making that deal, am I correct?
This is kind of to try and hedge against the catastrophic, basically.
Right, the biggies, because if we go in,
Yeah.
it's.
On the small side, some might wash, some are gonna end up paying a little bit more, but there's some savings in the premiums on the family side of thing. For some people, I'd say the majority of people that have the family coverage are going to end up saving a little bit on that, unless it's just a single and a couple of small kids, which I know there's a couple out there that have that.
What if you have $1,500 in your savings account and you retire?
That's your money, and if you're over 65.
Even the 1,000 that the county put in?
Yeah, absolutely, yep. And if you're over 65, you can take that money out and pay just your regular tax rate on it. If you're under 65, you get charged the tax penalty in addition to the regular tax rate.
But you can leave it in a health savings account.
Right, and it's actually, there are people that use them to save money for retirement because you can put away this certain amount of money every year. So, you could put more than that 1,500 if you're doing good. If you want to put in up to, you can put in up to $3,450 in a year for a single into that account, or $6,900 for a family.
And that's before taxes.
It's all pre-tax, but. Yes.
And I think a lot of people's fears is, like me, I've never been in a health savings account before. So I think a lot of that is the fear, and I don't want to point Nyla out, but Nyla, you've been part of a health savings account before?
Yes, Lauren has that now, and I like it.
Will the county set that each account up, or do we each have to set up our own? Well, the check
You're
was-
gonna go through your financial institution to do it.
So if the county gives $1,000 a year, that will just automatically go to that account?
Yeah.
We provide Becky with that account information and
Yeah.
it goes there,
Absolutely.
okay?
So we would set up a new account called an HSA at our bank, and then that, because you wouldn't want to give the same routing number that you use for the paychecks,
Correct.
right, correct? Okay, just making sure.
And this is, if we do go to the HSA, this is gonna be a hard learning curve for all of us old dogs, like myself.
It's gonna be, you're gonna have to use that card to pay for all your medical and prescription, basically.
And was it, because I'm totally naive when it comes to health savings accounts, but was it hard when you converted, Nyla?
I'm sorry, what?
Was it hard when you converted to?
Yes, it took us a while to change, get used to the idea of it. But it actually worked out well for us.
So if somebody's like, well, I wanna contribute $500 this month out of my paycheck to that, everybody can just do whatever they want at any time?
That's kinda up to you, I think, as far as, do
That could get a
you wanna
little
do
difficult.
uncontrolled payroll deductions every month, or do you wanna set it up so that the employee is on, basically on a scheduled payroll deduction, because I know that could be an absolute headache for your guys' department, so I think that kind of falls under what you would like to see.
So Ryan, I understand keeping the schedule, but you said you could dump any amount of money, let's say, I got 500 extra free dollars, I'm gonna put it in there. I could personally go to my bank and put that $500 in that account, correct?
Yes, but it won't be tax
No.
advantaged. That's the
Wouldn't
problem.
be pre-tax.
Yeah, you could do it, absolutely you could. You could transfer that money in, but you really get the advantage when you get it as a payroll deduction and get it pre-tax.
So you'd wanna run it through your payroll rather than
Right,
make a
so
personal
then
contribution.
you couldn't change that, then you have to be set on an amount and then go from there, so
But
you.
if
Well,
you wanted
it would have
to, yeah,
to be
you could-
something that we'd look into
Mhm.
and see what kind of headache it could cause. It's just the fact we can't have somebody saying, well, I want 102 this 2 weeks and I want 30 this 2 weeks, and that would cause too much of a headache, so.
I got a question, Ryan. Sure. How does it, I'll pick on the jail department. But anyhow, how does it work? Let's just say he hires an employee, cause he hires employees. But let's just say, when does the county contribute that 1,000? And what I'm saying is, let's say that that person only works for 1 or 2 months. I'm just saying, how does that work then?
That's a risk that you have to kind of take.
Probationary.
I don't know. That's what I'm
Probationary
asking.
period would be,
But, they will still have medical coverage immediately, but if you don't wanna put that 1,000 in until after the 3-month probationary period, that's your prerogative. Another thing that was mentioned to me was that you could do it quarterly, like $250 a quarter, but that, you kinda run into issues that way because if somebody needs that money up front, say you go to the doctor in January and you end up spending $1,000 or $1,200 or something like that, and you only got 250 in there, that kind of takes away the advantage for the employee, then if that money isn't available right away when you need it. Gotcha.
also, does the decision need to be made about what we're going to do with family policies in the future? Or are we going to not, or is the commission not gonna decide that, or is that not something not intended right now?
I mean, that's a part of it, but, I gave my recommendation at the last meeting to do with that what you want.
Which was,
I think that after this year, you should cut off enrollment in family plans and let them die off through attrition.
so whoever has them now, or whoever's a current employee can keep it.
So we'd be grandfathered in if we have a family policy once we,
But this is the last year that you allow enrollment in it.
and if you're a new employee, then you would only be entitled to the single benefit, and if you wanted to elect a family, that would be all out of pocket.
Correct.
If that's what the commission chooses.
If you're asking the county to give each employee $1,000 every year, would it not make it simpler that you just say, on the 1st of January, you put $1,000 in everybody's account, and then you don't get any more till the next January? So people who get hired, otherwise, pretty soon, you're gonna have every month where you're giving somebody $1,000 if you're just waiting till they're, they could start their own HSA, but they wouldn't get their $1,000 until the 1st of the next year.
That's a good point, and if you wanted to, you could, if you make it through that cycle, you could prorate the previous year's amount and then give it to them in addition to their $1,000, kind of as a, hey, thanks for sticking around type of thing too, but,
And we would have to modify that in our handbook too, right, on what we're going to do if we
Right,
make a
yeah, that would
decision.
be a policy modification, so.
And even if this commission agrees to give us $1,000 a year, that's a yearly decision they have to make, correct? That's not like forever.
Right, but I'm hoping that it ends up being just a cost of doing business. Just think of it as part of your premium, as the health insurance premium, not as a bonus or something like that,
I see what you're saying.
We're making the policy decision right here and right now, and after that, it continues in effect until we decide we want to modify the plan conditions.
See, I'm just more concerned about an employee just starts and leaves, even if it's a probation period of 3 months. You think about it, $1,000 and that money is theirs, that's a pretty good little chunk of money. I'm just gonna say 3 months. If they would choose not to work any longer than that, I think that period needs to be longer.
I like what Deb said, really, I mean,
Well,
I think that's
I
a
do
good
too.
idea.
Just do it annually?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that way you would only
Because
get a
the
deposit.
coverage is still there and it's still decent. I mean, for a single, it's still only gonna be $2,500 out of pocket. So you're not, I mean, it's not like you're not giving them a benefit, you're still giving them a benefit. So I think I like what Deb said, I think
Cause
that's a
there's,
good idea.
when you start working here, tell me if I'm right, Becky, you are on this group right away.
Well, it's 30 days.
There is 30 days.
It takes 30 days for it to be.
I did, and a lot of places are 3 months or more that you have to wait until you're covered. So just that 30-day waiting period is pretty darn decent. You know, so I just think for ease of administration, $1,000 once a year, like in the first of the year.
But you'd have to be an employee for a
Right.
specified amount of time before that, say, 9
I
months
think so
or.
too, I mean, that's where,
Through your
it's in my
probationary
mind.
period.
Because what's probationary period right now?
3 months.
Three
So if you
months.
start in December.
Yeah, if
you're
you
not-
start in
yeah.
December, then what?
Then you're gonna have to wait a year.
A year and a month.
That would be my recommendation. I don't know, what do you, Penny, what do you think? What do you think, Josh? You're the biggest, two biggest departments.
Well, I don't have much turnover down there, but
You're saying
if I did have to
completed-
hire somebody in
a complete
November.
probationary period before they get the first $1,000.
I guess that's where I differ.
I would say, for
Then you would
me,
have to wait till
because you don't have a lot of
year from
turnover.
January.
Yeah. Because you don't have a lot of turnover, but, and I think most of the people in all the departments have been here for a fair amount of time, so the only one that's really gonna affect is the jail, because they do have some turnover, and then it's how long do you want to, because like you said, if they go past their probationary period, you're gonna dump that $1,000 in right away.
Couldn't you
and they-
prorate that amount based on the amount of months, if they start in December and
But that's gonna
make
be
them
a
wait their
pain for
3
you.
months and then
Well,
put 9 months worth in instead of the full
I don't know.
1,000?
I think what I would do is say,
more complicated.
your first disbursement into your HSA by the county will be January 1st of the year after you completed your probationary period. So if somebody comes on in December, if they clear their probationary period in February, they aren't gonna get a disbursement until the next January.
February.
Let's go January 2nd, so it's here. If somebody ends up in the emergency room
Like
on
Deb says,
January
it's
1st.
still a pretty good benefit,
It is.
even without the $1,000 somebody coming in.
Yeah. Just the fact that it's
I would
30
fully
days.
agree with
It's
that.
not like you're hanging them out to dry. I mean, you're
No.
still giving them insurance coverage, so.
It's just gonna cost them an extra
Up front.
1,000 out of pocket max.
Yep, up
That
front.
year.
Up front, that year,
Yeah.
yep.
2,500.
It's still.
1,500.
Total, an extra
An extra
15.
thousand, well, yeah, an
It's
extra
2,500 if you're not, if you start in
Right.
December and you don't get that 1,000 from the county till the
Right,
following.
but all of us have to do
year.
1,500, so I'm
Yeah.
saying an extra 1,000 for
Yeah.
that person.
But the new hires, that would be 2,500 out of their pocket
Till they get
Yeah,
that.
for that first year.
for the first year.
I think that's
Well,
the fair way.
Doesn't take long to get to $2,500.
No.
And, yeah, and and this is just me personally, because again, I'm not a super insurance person. Initially, I wasn't a fan of the PPO Gold because I wanted to be lazy and have everything done by the other people, but now looking at this, my big thing is what is my maximum outlay going to be? And when you look at the HSA 2,500, it's, because that's the one that you're kind of looking at, right, Ryan?
That would be my recommendation.
Is it's gonna require me to do more work, but my exposure for a catastrophic illness for my wife or myself is going to be more than half the savings than the PPO Gold. And that's my big gamble is the catastrophic medical. If I fall and break my leg and I'm in the hospital for 2 days, I'm past $8,000 like that. And on the HSA 2,500, my maximum exposure is going to be 4,000 rather than 8,000. And even for me, coming up with an extra $4,000 to pay a bill is a lot of money. And I don't know about the rest of you, and I'm not trying to sway people here, but I'm just looking at how I would come up with the money to pay for an additional 4,000 rather than not paying for it. And that's my gamble because I'm worried about the catastrophic stuff, breaking a leg, heart attack, I'm always gonna have my normal stuff, but that's my big, or having a baby.
Well, there's some of us that regardless, we're gonna meet it every year. We're gonna hit that 8,000.
That was kinda your point too, right?
Right. And you know, even when you think about $2,500 is a lot of money, cause it all is, you know, but if it was the 8,000, and I'm not such a fan of HSAs. I did one, when they were first new, and I personally had a little bit of trouble with it, and it was quite a while ago. But I know that they've improved, and I did call and talk to Jesse a little bit too, because I had some concerns. Remember that if you went with the PPO, and all of a sudden you had $8,000 dealing with medical, the hospital doesn't live on what they decide. They want that bill paid within 12 months. And that's what they're gonna divide it down when you go in there and you talk to them about making payments. So think about that. If you have $8,000 and you're dividing it down and it's a monthly payment, that's a pretty big chunk of money every month to become. Not all of us can do that. I know I can't, you know. So in the end,
But is not the 8,000 family?
that's family, or 4,000 too, you know. It's you know, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. Doesn't matter which way you're going. It's 4,000, 8,000 is still a lot of money. The nice thing about having, well, I guess either card is that they know you have insurance, so usually they'll work with you. But some hospitals won't. Avera wants it every 12. They want it done in 12 months. You know, and after doing core relief. That's kind of a big thing to think about too when you're thinking about your deductible.
I think a person that is getting up there in age, I think this would be the preferable plan for them. I think just because you know you're gonna have more issues to attend to. It's not necessarily a young person's plan, young and carefree, you might go to the doctor once a year, you get.
Or if you have continuous medical costs.
Right, or if you have continuous medical costs, yeah, I mean, that's why I looked at it from that light, try to cover it in case of the catastrophic. Trying to limit the financial burden to the employee.
I just wanna know who you think's getting up there. I mean, I just wanna throw that out there.
We're not a pool of 20-year-olds.
Well, that's true.
Penny's got a couple 100 years of longevity over there at the highway department,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's the way I looked at it. It's not gonna benefit everybody, and it's not going to be a flawless transition. I'm sure
But
there's
they
gonna be a lot
have
of
to make
hiccups
a
along the
decision
way.
today.
Absolutely, yeah. There's gonna be some bumps along the way.
Hopefully not as many as the vision and the life have caused.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, we're supposed to have cards for that.
You're supposed to, still haven't done it.
Well, a bunch of our emails to them were deleted somehow.
Huh?
A bunch of our emails to them they lost.
Huh.
And this program too,
Yesterday.
I
Brian,
have a dental card.
with the chaos with regard to medical coverage nationwide, this could totally change in a year or two, couldn't
Yep,
it?
we might be doing this exact same thing next year. Hate to say it, but
It all stems on if they replace the Affordable Health Care Act, if they don't put anything in place to replace it, if they repeal it. It'd be sad if they did repeal it because
I didn't wanna have to do this year.
absolutely.
But we moved into a different size group, and I think that was what caused the problem, so. We moved into a medium tier group, and out of that small size,
And for the foreseeable future, this is going to be a yearly issue for all of us that we need to look at, because
definitely gonna address it every year just to make sure that we're getting the best value for our money, yeah, I mean, that only makes sense, so. Yep. I mean, I put a lot of time into doing this research and putting this stuff together, and kinda stinks having to do it every year, because I put a lot of time into it last year too, so.
and it's extremely complicated.
It is. I know more about insurance than I ever cared to, so.
You could get a side job.
No.
Ryan Batten, insurance agents.
Well, you know, if you quit your job, you can always become an insurance salesman now.
Consultants make $100 an
Okay, anybody else have any comments?
I think we
Which
should
we-
take a poll of department heads and see what ones they want.
Okay. Jamie, you wanna start?
Okay, your HSA 2500,
Yep, it's not the best plan for me, but I can see where it'd be the best plan for the majority, and it's all about the majority, so
and
yes.
initially when I first came in here, I was a PPO Gold. That's where I wanted to go, but now I think I'm HSA 2500. What about you, Kathy?
I think I'm with you.
And my reasoning is I have ongoing medical issues that are gonna, I'll hit that $4,000 between my wife and I easily. and that's
Does it
gonna-
cover your mental health problem?
No,
it
that's all out of
doesn't.
pocket. I've been crazy since I was born. That's a pre-existing injury.
Equalization offices, HSA, what, are we agreed to the HSA?
Nyla?
HSA.
Josh?
HSA.
Penny?
They said whatever the commission would call it.
I would really support that, well, if Ryan did said it, yeah, that we wouldn't add that $1,000 to January 2nd, or the next year after they're off their probation. However Becky wants to write that.
What would your department?
The HSA.
Right, so-
Micah?
HSA.
Ryan,
We don't wanna go already.
well, but what about your department?
I'm gonna have to walk them through it, and that's gonna be complicated, but that, I still vote that way, so.
You're kind of making an executive decision, is that what you're saying?
Okay, we have 7 for the HSA 2500 and 1 kind of for the PPO, right?
And one in the, I don't
No,
care.
they said whatever you guys decided they were fine with. They were uncomfortable with the HSA because they don't know anything about it. And only if the commission agrees to the $1,000 per person.
And we're gonna definitely, not to interrupt, but if we're gonna go to that HSA, we as a group need to educate ourselves very well. And we're probably gonna look to Ryan or Jesse Conold or one of those people to come in and force us to learn how to do this, or else we're gonna hate the program.
This is gonna start like right away, I mean.
January 1st?
The policy's gonna start right away, but the work is gonna start now. It needs to.
Are you saying we just went to a deductible?
So we need to have our
What's up?
HSA account set up by January 1.
Getting stuff in place, so when it goes into effect January 1st, we're already ready to go.
Yep.
The work starts now,
Yeah.
the plan will start till
Okay,
January.
don't be switching my policy right now.
No.
Yeah, mine neither.
No.
So
This goes into effect
can,
the first of the year, right?
Yep.
can we, maybe have Jesse or Ryan give us a couple little seminars, like maybe part of us in the morning and part of us in the afternoon? So that we start getting on board, so we get it right for Becky and get the account set up and everything, so when January 1st does come, or 2nd, when everything gets dumped,
Yeah.
we'll have an idea.
Yeah, give me some time to get the plan going forward, whatever that's gonna be for enrollment, and then we'll definitely get with all the employees.
We wanna be all educated by Friday.
I'm sure Jesse's had to, there's
This isn't
probably
their first group
other,
enrollment.
Oh,
right.
the banks must be.
Well, they probably already have ideas on how to handle the new employees versus,
These are becoming more and more common, these HSA plans.
Okay. Can we have a motion to go with the HSA 2500? Okay, second? No, what do you?
can we, verify with the 1,000, please?
With
With
the
the 1,000.
probationary, with the, when it's gonna be added.
Okay, with the 1,000.
With the 1,000 and with it starting January 2nd, $1,000.
I'll write that into the policy manual, and I'll bring that to the next meeting, so.
Okay, so we'll just do HSA with the 1,000
With the
and then
1,000,
the rest of it can be handled in the policy.
With regard to new employees.
yep. Correct.
Okay.
And you'll have that in policy.
Yep, I'll have it ready for the next meeting. Yep.
And did they reach a decision about not offering family going forward then, starting January 1?
That's not this motion right now.
Okay.
We don't have to do that one right now, anyway, do we?
So, have a help with the motion to go with the HSA with the county providing $1,000. Schilling second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Jim?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
David, yes. Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate that. Okay, discussion regarding Beacon GIS contract.
There were some questions when Beacon's contract was submitted last meeting, so we just moved it to this meeting so Deb could be here to answer any questions. I think one of the big questions is once we pay the subscription, do we collect the money for additional accounts, or we just let them do it? Deb, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, we can do it either way. I myself would prefer that we just let them continue to sell the subscriptions, because I don't know what we would have to set up as a county, because a lot of people are gonna do those online. So, you know, we don't have that capability at this point. And if they sell them, what they're charging is up to them. And I don't have to fight with it, with CoreLogic or any of those.
And do you know what an estimated yearly subscription would be?
I'm not sure, I can look on site, but, it's like, they can buy a day for $15 or 6 months, but most of the realtors all buy it.
And I think I know what we paid in Spink County was around $500 a year for a subscription for our office. And we paid that to Spink County. They sold the subscriptions. But they had a different setup initially than we did, because they started paying right away with Beacon, starting year one when they first went on board, and then they just sell their own subscriptions, where we're a little different, where we didn't pay up front for the building and stuff, right?
Right.
Wasn't there discussion of if we got more counties on board that it would lower our subscription fee per year?
I mean, GIS offered that, but Beacon didn't. And the GIS guy, that was the name of their company. By the time Beacon came and gave their presentation, he had left the company, so. I just think, we put it in the budget for $20,000. It's not gonna come quite to that. We can pay for it over a number of years. I think my advice would be, at least over that 5-year period that we're paying for them, let them continue to sell the subscriptions. Then we could have a pretty good idea of what that's gonna mean, and we could change that.
And just to follow up on that, then that alleviates a lot of the problems of people contacting us and wanting all the information Deb has for a few dollars, right? Like some of these big, and I know that the commission previously has had issues with how much public information do we give away? That alleviates Deb from making that determination. That would be Beacon's determination and their cost, not ours.
Right now, the names are.
Is that correct, Deb?
For a regular subscription, they need to know an address, a parcel number, or a legal description. You don't get a name. But Beacon could make that decision that if you're gonna get a list of names, then you pay more. The names are private.
And that takes some of the decision-making off this commission with regard to what is disclosed.
We had an episode with it, with those people that make those small atlases. Because I told them to, it's Farm and Ranch or something like that. I told them to contact Beacon. They didn't wanna pay what it cost, so they didn't wanna pay Beacon what it cost to get the name and the whole bit. And, so they decided they would just take a regular subscription, and they would fill out their atlas, thinking they could decipher the sales information that was on the site. So they ended up with, mineral deed owners as owners of the land. They ended up with a mess.
Or owners from years ago.
Because somebody just filed completed contract or deed, or somebody just filed a joint, terminate joint tenancy, and they thought they could figure that out. Well, that really wasn't, they had an opportunity to buy that information correctly. I'm not sure who made the decision, but I think you sent them then a tax book or something. Then I'm not, I wouldn't do it, so I'm not sure if you talked to these guys or how that decision was made.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Do you agree with the subscription thing?
That's fine with me,
Okay, so I can get this
whatever's
signed.
easiest.
We didn't have a vote, yeah,
We need a motion to sign the contract.
Okay, can I have a motion to sign the Beacon GIS contract?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the Beacon GIS contract. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any old business?
I got something, I don't know if it's old or new. I just wanna remind the commissioners that there's more to our job than just the jail. We've got roads out there that need a lot of attention, so keep that in mind. Because every meeting we are just discussing the jail and all that. Keep in mind, there's more to our job than just one thing. That's all I have.
Any other old business? Any new business? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Okay.